All right, we are live, episode 26, Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. I am your host, Neil LaFortune, coming to you all the way from lovely Aurelia, Ontario, Canada. And it's an absolutely beautiful fall day. It is cold. It's getting cold. Excited for today's guest, but I want to thank Mr. Lucas von Gretsch for connecting Mike Fasano and myself. And I also want to congratulate Lucas on the success of his inaugural episode of the Gretsch Heritage Show. It tells the story of the Gretsch family from the early days of the founder Friedrich Gretsch's journey to the USA, featuring some name Gretsch drum artists like Mark Schulman and some other special guests. This is on every other Wednesday. It's broadcast through Facebook and YouTube at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. Hi, everybody. Really nice to see everybody. Hey, Ron. Hi, Jackie. Hi. Wow, lots of people. And my guest today, Mr. Mike Fasano, has had such a wide and varied career, as you will hear from his musical journey, from being a youngster playing in a flag band at school and graduating through the ranks of playing on cruise ships or the Love Boat, and then has become one of the premier drummers from Los Angeles, and all the way up to playing with bands like Warrant, and through the success of his fantastic group called Tiger Army. Mike, I sent you a request to join me in this video for episode 26. Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break, that was born out of the COVID shutdown of all of the gigs and whatnot. So I'm waiting for Mike to accept the request here, and we are connecting, and he's, oh yeah, I had to go to the phone. Why wouldn't I tell you that, eh? This is nice. Look at that. Is that a drum shop, or is that Mike? Is that your, that's not everything either, right?
Well, it's like when I tried to do this shot, because you said you had a couple guests that didn't have any drums around.
They weren't around.
And this is for our friends at Gretsch, our family at Gretsch. I just pulled one drum from every kit I have, and I promise to you, I hit three of my friends and I said, "Do I look like a dick doing this? Is this okay?" Because I just don't want to come off like that, because I'm not like that.
No,
but anyways, so yeah.
Awesome. So if you see me drooling here, you'll know why, and we will get to what those all those are. Holy smokes, look at this. The numbers are flying around. People from India saying hello to you, people from all over. This is incredible. Thanks so much for being so great and for joining me today. And what have you been doing since the shutdown in March?
Well, since the shutdown, I tried to grow a COVID beard. I got about 6 weeks in, but I'm just one of those guys, at about 3 weeks, it just itches and itches, and people say, hang in there, hang in there. It's going to not itch, and you're going to get past it. You're going to have this rich beard, and that didn't work. So after that, I thought I'd do something a little different. I thought, since my hair is naturally black and wonderful for my age, I thought I'd dye my hair gray. I'm a little gray curious, as they say. And now that I've looked at a gray curious hashtag on Instagram, it is always in my feed. So so I don't know. I'm trying this gray salt and pepper thing. I think I might have got a little too much gray over here, but not enough over here.
It makes you look distinguished.
Ah.
And cool, of course, that voice, I'm telling you, you should be doing some voiceover. And Jackie here says that you look great. She's all the way from Alberta. We appreciate everybody tuning in. So,
hey, Jackie.
Nice. Yeah, and really nice to see everybody. So what did you have that was canceled or postponed for this year?
We were really literally going out on the second part of our U.S. tour with Tiger Army. We were 1 week prior to it all closing down. 1 month prior to that, everybody started canceling because COVID became serious, but we hung on right to the end. We thought we might be able to do the run of shows in California that first week, but the lockdown came. We canceled the week before that. It's just the weirdest thing, you're so prepped to go, and you're so ready to go, and you're so psyched to go, and you've got all your ducks in a row, and you're, whatever, and for it just to stop. Now, it's fine because it's a world problem. It's not just
Yeah,
our problem or whatever. So,
that's true.
yeah, we were going to do a US tour. And it's just now, we immediately rescheduled the dates, but did not announce them. And those dates would have been right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, 6 months ago, we didn't know that we weren't going to be playing again. So I got together with Nick 13, our singer, a couple weeks ago. We did a little social distance backyard tiki extravaganza because he's really into tiki drinks, and he made some cocktails. And we talked a little bit about how it's not even worth trying to book a show or a tour because who knows? I mean, everybody's saying, oh, we're going to do it in the summer, we're going to do it in the summer. Who knows if the summer's going to come to do it? And if they do it in the summer, well, how are the capacities going to be? Well, we play 5 to 2,500 people venues. That's sort of the average Tiger Army around the world or whatever.
Right.
So the other problem is these 5 to 2,500, and then some of the arenas and some of the halls and all that stuff. Some of these clubs and little smaller venues are going away. So there's going to be this onslaught of people trying to book a tour and route a tour because you don't want to be too far, because you don't want to have too far of drives and all that stuff. So it's just, I think for now it's just a holding pattern. I am going to encourage Nick, maybe over some more tiki drinks, that maybe we should start writing and just getting ideas down so we have stuff. But it was kind of a hard thing for him to stop and us to just stop, and then the world to stop, and just not knowing. So,
Yeah, we figured it was a couple of weeks or a month or maybe 2, and I had a tour booked as well, and
yeah.
that was for 3 or 4 months away from that. I'm like, oh, that'll be fine, and then we moved things to October. That'll be fine, and now we're not even sure if next summer is going to be great. So, but you're healthy, you look good. I think you get out and you run and you work out and you're pumping up and everything, right?
I have a great little neighborhood that I can walk in, and I've been posting, and I've been walking again. First of all, we had crazy fires around us on either side of us in California where the smoke was horrible, and we had the hottest days of whatever. So I didn't really get to do it for about a month and a half, and I just started up a couple weeks ago, and it's so good for your head just to walk. Every time I see something different, it's just so good. And I've been listening to books on tape, and I'm going through the whole Neil Peart book thing in order, since he had passed away. And I've got a couple more books to listen to while I'm doing it. And it's just good. And it just gets me out. And especially now that we kind of know it's time to make new routines. And the new routines are, well, that's an old routine, but it's like, okay, I've got to get out and I've got to do this. The crazy thing is when COVID hit, my friends were posting videos and they were working out, and it was crazy. And I swear I could not get motivated. I would watch these things and I said, oh, I better go get up and have some cereal at 7:30 p.m. And oh, maybe some chips after that. I can have chips after the cereal. I was just so stuck and sedated, and that's not me. And not being able to leave the house for 10 or 12 weeks was tough. But I sort of turned it around and just started, once it opened up a little bit, I started getting out and doing a few things. And I'll, there's some stuff sort of happening, but it's, trying to be safe and wear the mask and sanitize and,
This is a good opportunity.
This is normal. This has become normal.
And it's been good in so many ways. A lot of family time, I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for COVID. I wouldn't have learned some audio things. I wouldn't be filming all kinds of things and working on me and practicing. Hey, Anthony McKelly just joined us here. Fabulous drummer from the G.
Hey, Anthony.
Absolutely awesome drummer, great guy, educator. Let's talk about when drums and music came into your life.
Drums and music. My family, my mom and dad are from Italy, but they actually met at an Italian-American Federation dinner dance in downtown LA at St. Peter's Italian Church on North Broadway. And it's a church thing, like a Catholic church thing, and a procession, and then they have a dinner dance and there's a band. And so I had this Uncle Pete Pontrelli, who's really not my uncle, by the way,
Sure.
but Uncle Pete Pontrelli played saxophone. He played in this little quartet or trio, and they play Italian music and whatever. And you know, I grew up with a strict Italian father, a great Italian mother, but he was always, you know, when we were at this table of this dinner dance, it was like nobody was dancing from our table. My dad was, like I said, real strict, and there was a way for me. I guess I went up to see my Pete from the side of the wings of the stage, and I saw the drummer, and I saw Pete. He played sax, and there was a bass player, or a keyboard player. And I didn't understand this. I didn't understand this. I didn't understand this, but this
Yeah.
kind of clicked. So for as shitty as my dad made me feel, this was sort of an escape. I was locked in. So fast forward, the band would go on a break. My Uncle Pete would, you know, pull whatever coins he had out of his pocket. He said, Michael, you sit here on the stool and watch the bandstand, and don't let anybody come up here. And nobody was going to come up. You know what I mean? It was whatever. So whatever. So from the middle of the bandstand, I went, the next break, I went and sat on the drum stool. And I looked at the pedal, and I looked at the hi-hat pedal. I barely touched it. And I looked at it, and then I watched the drummer. And then the next break, the same thing. Here's a pocket full of change. And then the drummer came up and said, hey, you know, this is the bass drum pedal, and this is this crash cymbal. And a lot of times you hit the same thing, you know. And I was 11 or 10. I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I could hide behind the wing to get away from my strict parent and just be mesmerized by this waltzes and cha-chas and Italian, you know,
That's amazing.
music. So that was it. And then it was just sort of on, and I was exposed to that, and that was a reason to go. We went a few times a month on a Sunday for these dinner things, and that was sort of my thing. And then I was in high school, and my best friends that I grew up with were taking lessons at a music store called Larry Larson Music, and I don't know how my mom talked my dad into it, but I got to take lessons, and I had a great teacher named Nick Scarmack, and we're friends today. And he's still somebody I seek advice from, but that was it. And then my mom divorced my dad, and we took a vacation, never been on a plane before. Now I'm like 14,
Wow.
go to Toronto, Canada.
Hey!
The Police were a big band. The only song I knew was Every Breath You Take on the radio. My Laura Francone in Etobicoke, my cousin, said, oh, there's more to it. Here's all this. And by the way, the Police are playing a big concert. We stayed an extra week. I went to C&E Stadium. We were right on the rail. I saw the Police Picnic 83. It changed my world. I mean, there were bands like The Fix, Blue Peter, Peter Tosh, King Sunny Ade and his African Beats. And then right before the Police, James Brown opened up. And then the Police came on. And I had some backlog from the 2 weeks of vacation with my cousin Laura, and I knew all the songs, and I was just blown away. I saw Stuart Copeland, and I said, I got to do this. I got to do this. Somehow I got to do this at 13 or 14 or whatever it was in high school and whatever. So that was sort of my introduction to it. And, you know, I went to a high school that didn't have a music program because it was a small Catholic school, except for the grade school, which is the grade school band I started playing in. And prior to that, you know, just doing flag salute stuff and marches as
Right.
we did the morning prayers and all that stuff. But yeah, that was it. It was the Police in Toronto in '83 and Stuart Copeland. And I play nothing like him. I love him to pieces, but
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
I might do an accent once in a while on the bell and think I'm Stuart Copeland, but that's just me.
Well, what an awesome way to be inspired, and especially to see the Police back when they were really hungry. I don't think they didn't outstay their welcome, which was amazing. They stayed hungry, and then Sting kind of finished everything off kind of at the height of their career. But what an amazing band to see them. I saw them in '08 when they were in Toronto, and that was pretty awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. I did want to ask you, the Flag Salute Band, so I don't understand what that is. I didn't go to a Catholic school. Is that a march kind of thing that you were doing?
Yeah, it's basically in the morning. I went to a small St. Robert Bellarmine in Burbank, and basically it's like a bass drum. It's a guy with a ride cymbal on a stand. It's 2 snare drums and 1 tom-tom. And when I was in grade school and I got kicked out of grade school and had to go to Catholic school, I met this kid, Ricky. He was a snare drummer already in like 4th grade. And he got me into the band. I started on the ride cymbal, and then I went to the bass drum, and then I eventually got to the tom. And then I got to the snare drum with him as soon as some of the older guys graduated into high school. But basically, it was like some cadence stuff that would, well, the band would do a song, and this is the era of the '70s, and we had a music teacher that taught all of us how to sort of play the parts, named Hal Weatherwax, and he passed away now years ago. But Hal, we would do a tune called "Sunny," and we would do da 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 boom boom da 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 boom boom. That was the beat, okay. And then we'd have a cadence for the flag salute, da 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 da, while they rose the flag, and the snare roll, and then there was a prayer, and then there was a tune out, and then that was it. And then the kids would march into line and then march back into the thing, because it was a military school back in the day. It's a Catholic, St. Robert Bellarmine, right. Whatever, Bellarmine Jefferson, whatever. So yeah, so that was sort of the thing, and that was it, and I think, it wasn't like hard. It wasn't drum line. I mean, I was so young. High school, we didn't have a drum line. In fact, when we were kids, we would play the high school football game. The grade school band would play the high school football games because there was no band in high school. Okay. Do you know what I mean? So that's how small it was. I think we had 115 kids in each class.
Wow.
My class at Bell Jeff when I graduated was like 115. So it's pretty small sort of thing. I played some sports too, but I was never,
right,
good at that. But music was the escape. It was the passion. It was and still is. I'm still working at it, so I'm still trying to figure it out. So
did you have a drum set at that point when you were young?
No, not really. It was, we did get a drum set from a kid down the street. And I did have it through high school. Yes. But the real drum set came when I graduated. With all my graduation money, I bought a drum set with that. And that's when I wanted to be, Bobby Blotzer from Rat or Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. You know what I mean? That was the era, 86 era. And I had a Tama Candy Apple Red Superstar kit. And
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it was kind of that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, had you been exposed to Gretsch drums at that point, or when did that actually happen?
Gretsch, for me, obviously I saw in the magazines. I would see if you probably remember this because we're of the same generation and year exactly.
Yeah.
I saw the thing where it was the lacquer bottle with the rag.
Oh yeah.
Ad in the back. Do you remember that ad?
Oh yeah.
And it's funny. It's like you knew about Gretsch, but again, I was a product of the '80s, and it was like, oh, well, what's Wild Mick Brown from Dokken playing? Well, he's playing Tama. And what's Eric Singer from Kiss playing? Oh, he's playing Pearl. You know what I mean? So, that was sort of the thing. That was what I was listening to, and I loved the Police, and I loved The Cure. And I actually liked Duran Duran. I mean, the '80s were cool because there was the hair metal stuff, and then there was the new wave stuff. And I missed the punk thing, and I missed the Zeppelin thing. So this was sort of where I came up from. But after I graduated high school, I had done some cruise ship gigs, Princess Cruises University, as I call it. And my friend Eric Wells sold me a 6.5 by 14 walnut stop sign badge Gretsch snare drum, and it was really cool. That was my first Gretsch snare drum. It was cool, and I had it, and I only had a couple snare drums and one drum set at that time, and it was that Tama Superstar kit, and that's when I kind of was like, okay, this is cool, and I knew the Jazzer guys were using it. A few years later, I realized guys like Jeff Porcaro were really using, even though they were Pearl endorser, they were using that in the studio. And that's a whole nother thing. So it started to become familiar, but it wasn't on my radar. I didn't understand it to be on my radar,
right.
to how rad Gretsch is.
And at that point, they may not have been in the healthiest position financially. I don't know if they made a whole lot of drums. I know it took an awful long time for you to get a USA custom kit, and so
still does.
It does, and rightfully so too. By seeing first of all how many people actually order those, and the lengthy process. I think it takes 5 weeks, as Paul Cooper said last week, to get through the process. If it's just it might even be a wrap finish, or it might be the lacquer, but it's at least 5 weeks. So, and when you have hundreds and hundreds of drummers wanting those drum kits, you're going to get a lineup of those. And Tama drums, we call them Tama in Canada, and
Okay.
Pearl, they were real, and Yamaha drums, they were super popular and filled the drum shops in Toronto. So we had a question here. Root Beer Youth said that he has the same snare drum as what is behind you. I'm not sure if he's referring to the aluminum drum, is that, or the whatever, which one? Yeah, you've got a few. What is that? What are those two snare drums just above your head?
Well, these are two of the drums that I ordered with my new kit and my Gretsch endorsement, which my drums took about 9 months. It was like having a baby.
Whoa!
And which is completely fine. And they actually didn't make it in time for the tour. And my friend and old roommate, Matt Sorum, loaned me his Cadillac Green broadcaster kit for the tour because it had a rack and 2 floors and a kick drum. So, and in Tiger Army, I play a rack and 2 floors and a kick drum. I can do it on the 2 drums, but Nick likes some of the Gene Karupa or some of the double tom kind of rolly stuff. And so it's just really for the show part and whatever. But I ordered a piano black lacquer. I thought, if I was with the pork pie drums for 27 years, and making the switch was like, it was bittersweet. And I thought, well, if I'm coming out and I'm going to make a statement, I'm going to do piano black. You can't go wrong with that. We can use that in a lot of situations with the Tiger Army for now. And I ordered a bunch of drums. I ordered a couple kick drums, a 22 and a 24, 10, 12, 13, 16, 16, 18. Why 2 16s? Because if I ever have to sell or want to sell these drums, you can't give somebody a 13, 18, 24. You got to throw a 16 in there. And then the other kit can be a 10, 12, 16, 22. You know what I mean? You see a lot of stuff go away like that. But I finally figured that out after all these years, is to get if you get 2 bass drums, get 2 floor toms, 2 16s. Anyways, but piano black, this is the aluminum, the solid aluminum, which came from the day we were leaving on tour. I went to Oxnard and saw my friend Andrew, who's the artist relations guy. And this came from the showroom because I needed something to have out there because my drums didn't make it in time, which is fine. And as long as I had something to play and represent, because Gretsch is a new company for me, and that's a rare thing because I've been with all of my companies for so many years now. And so I took that, and I always, metal's always great, whether it's brass, bronze, this is aluminum. It sounded great when I checked it out in the showroom. Sometimes the weather, you never know. The drums riding around in the trailer, you never know what's going to happen. It's going to be solid. You don't know what's happening. So I took that with me. This Cadillac Green drum, I was along with the piano black drum, which you can't see, which is up here. Here it is, which from the kit.
See it.
So to match the kit, just, this is the big shell pack score. I've evolved. My sound evolved. I mean, I used to play in like 80s rock bands and like Warrant and my stuff was meat and potatoes, big drumsticks, whatever. I knew that I had to make a change sonically to fit in with Tiger Army. And part of it is changing the drumstick size, smaller drums, higher tunings, brighter cymbals, smaller cymbals. Because, we have George Stipovic, who's our upright bass player, and he does the slap and the low end. And then Nick 13, our guitar player, even though we're just a little trio, his thing could be as clean, as pretty as possible, but then it can just shred and tear your head off. And you've got to find the sounds to fit in there. Now, the funny thing is, I'm the guy, when I work with my day job, which is my drum rental and tuning business that I have had for 20 years in LA, I'm the guy listening, sitting back, watching the guy play, hearing, making the adjustments, making the tuning things. I sort of had to do this. It's hard to sit back, and you can't sit back. So I was watching Instagram live videos and YouTube videos that fans would post, and it's like, wait a minute, that ride cymbal is crazy. That's too much. oh my gosh, my friend Freddie, a producer friend of mine, saw us at a theater in LA, and he said, your cymbals are too dark. They're just going and going away with the subs that are happening in the rooms and that you're playing. And so it's like I immediately brighten the cymbals up, you know. So it's been an evolution over the couple of years. This was when I was still playing the pork pie stuff, and and when it came time to play Gretsch, um, I just wasn't sure about the kick drum. I didn't know if I could go to a 22. I didn't know if I could go to a 12-inch rack tom, 16, 18. That's why I ordered a 24. That's why I ordered a 13. But a 22-inch kick drum, a 12-inch rack tom are amazing for this band. There's a lot of weird combo stuff happening with it, and almost like from the cruise ship days. So
Right.
it all works. It all is working.
You're making
So
this really easy for me, by the way, and thank you so much. This is awesome. Can we talk a little bit about the Love Boat years? Where did you go? What did you learn? And essentially, that sounds like that was your education.
completely my education. My first time away from home, I had just graduated high school. I had worked at a music store, Larry Larson, where I was taking my first lessons with Nick Scarmack. I had an opportunity with the guys, the couple of the teachers there, to audition for this cruise ship thing. Now, I would go see these guys at a bowling alley, and my high school friends will remember this. I had a phony ID. This little lounge band. It was a lounge band, really, and doing, you know, Stevie Wonder songs and not the cool Stevie Wonder songs. I just called to say I love you, and some cha-chas and waltzes, and maybe some of the softer Beatles stuff. And I would go in there, and this guy Spider Webb was the drummer, and he'd let me sit in. And I would sit in, and I remember there was a brush tune, and I remember he put his arms around me, and I held the brushes, and he did the strokes for me. It was cool. It was a bar gig. It was a bowling alley bar gig, and so that and those are the guys. Spider didn't want to do this gig, this cruise ship opportunity, and I went. We auditioned. I played the song Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett. I played it with blast stick and a cross stick. And then the contractor said to me, so you play with brushes too, right? I said, oh yeah, man, sure. As any cocky 18-year-old would say. And I had, because of that experience in the nightclub. The next thing I thought it was the first cruise was a 14-day cruise or whatever. It turns out the first cruise was 14 days, and then it was a 3-month contract. I signed to a three-month contract, and I was off. And I was on this ship, and the big band drummer knew I was green. His name was Rich Watson. He was a contributing writer for Modern Drummer at one time, and he was the show band drummer. And he took me under his wing, and he showed me how to play brushes. He showed me how to play bossa nova. He showed me how to play cha-cha, and whatever. And what's really cool about the standards, as you would know, they're great songs. So I could remember the form.
Yeah.
I mean, I could, you know, my extent of my reading is the Carmine Appice realistic rock book, but I could remember the forms. It was a quick sort of study, and I interpreted the feels, and we played, you know, whatever. We had maybe 40 songs, but I had a feel for it, and I had the beats for it, and I learned. And then I watched the show band every night, and I watched Rich play, and it blew my mind, and that was just amazing. That's when I got into jazz and other things like that because of being on the cruise ship. But like I said, first time away from home, 18 years old. It was like a university. It was a party there. I knew that I could get sandwiches from the guy, the Filipino guy who was a Filipino guy. He was one of the cabin cleaners. He had a sandwich making machine. He'd steal the cheese and meat and bread from the galley on the ship and had a sandwich press, and you know, we'd be all, you know, having cocktails and parties in our cabin. And, you know, we worked every day, 7 days a week. We worked no more than, I think, 4 or 5 hours a night. It was just, you know, tuxedos and the sequin, you know, playing cha-chas and waltzes. And, you know, like I said, the I Just Called to Say I Love You song. So I had to learn how to get along with people. I had to learn how to find the guy on the ship who did the laundry, you know, that you'd pay. It was a great time. It was the best. And I still have friends to this day that are just dear friends. And this is pre-cell phone. This is pre-pagers. I mean, this is 88, 89, 90. I got off the ship in 91. I did a total of 2 years over a 4-year period. So it was interesting. It was interesting to me. But then Sorum said to me, you got to get
Yes.
off the ships. You got to get off the ships, because if you if you can't audition for like Madonna, not Madonna, or whatever these bands that were doing these things, like
Sure.
if you're on a contract for 3 months. So that's when I started living with Matt, and renting a room from him. And then I started going on to auditions. I went on a Foreigner audition that my friend Mark Schulman, who is also a Gretsch artist, and he produced my band back in the day, DPM, aka Dad's Porno Mag, got me on a Foreigner audition. I went on. I heard about the Cattle Call Wilson Phillips audition. And I remember leaving my mom's house. I lived with
Wow.
my mom, driving her car with some drums in it. I went down a mile from the house, and I'm 2 miles from the thing. Turned around, went back, started going home, then turned around. It's like I was so nervous to do it. And I did it. It was an experience. But there's so many guys, and there's so many great drummers, and a lot of times you get these cattle call auditions, which they don't even think they do them anymore. They just find you on YouTube or something. They had 2 guys in mind, so I did some of those, and it's like the way you got to get a gig that's a name to get a gig. People always want to say that guy came
Right.
from this band.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Yeah. So I've heard. Yeah, I've absolutely heard of that. Heard as well. Maroon 5, the tech, who was a drum tech, Matt. I can't remember his last name. Became the drummer in the band, which is a pretty good gig to have had. After that, they had tremendous success. So, what happened when you took Matt's advice and you stayed home? What were some of the gigs that came about?
Well, I was working at a store called Valley Arts in Studio City, and it was they had guitars and they had drums, and they actually had their own line of guitars. We lived in Laurel Canyon, so it was right down the street from the store. And I was playing in a blues band, a top 40 band, a wedding band, a bar mitzvah band, just doing everything. I was doing all these gigs, country band for $30 a night. I remember we'd play these smoky little bars, and it was dark. I mean, I'm not talking, it was dark, literally physically dark in the club, and smoky. And this is when every bar had live music. And I remember I'd work all day, and then I'd have to do this gig until 1 a.m. And I could lean up against the wall with my drums, rest my arms on my body, and and close my eyes and actually zone out. And then when the song was done, wake up and then go to the next song. But it was just creepy because barflies and old school people, they wanted to dance and stuff, but it wasn't like this pumped up what country is today. And it is just dark. But those kind of gigs for $30 a night, and that supplemented my income of $160 a week working at the store. And then I'd be coming home sometimes at 1 a.m, and Matt'd be like, "Let's go out, man. Let's go out and hang out. We're gonna go to Duff's house up the street," and go up to Duff's house, and who knows who's there. And then you get back home right around sunrise. I got to be back at the store by 9:30, whatever. It was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. But I remember when I worked at the store, people would say, "Oh man, you're Matt Sorum's roommate. He's gonna get you a gig. He's gonna get you a gig." He never got me a gig. He got me a gig working for him and teching for him, but it wasn't a gig. It was never a gig. It was never, and I never looked at him like that. I just always looked at him as a big brother, and that I had to pay rent to, $350 a week, and sorry, a month, and I have to watch his girlfriend. I can't think of her name right now, but I'd have to watch his girlfriend when he was on tour with Guns, with her friend coming to do her guy friend, just friend, in the jacuzzi. It was hard to turn a blind eye to that. It was weird, but and I moved his car and picked up dog shit. Can I say that? Can I picked up?
Only in California, I swear, because my formative years were certainly nothing quite as colorful as that. the places, yes, and the experiences were very similar, of course. But that's pretty awesome. What are some of the good gigs that came up after you came home and from the ships?
Definitely, I think the biggest start for me was um, Gilby Clarke, and I had worked with Matt on Gilby Clarke, and I had teched on that record because my first studio record was the Spaghetti Incident with Matt Sorum, and then it was Slash the Snakepit, and then it was like Gilby Clarke, and then a few months later it was Green Day. So I went from like Guns N' Roses to Green Day, two of the biggest bands back at that time, '94-ish, two different genres. The end of
Wow.
Guns N' Roses for a while, and the beginning of Green Day for a while. And but in that came Gilby Clarke. That's the other thing too, is I've always played it. I've all of these different bands, but it came Gilby Clarke. And what the cool thing about Gilby Clarke was, I got to play on his record. I got to, and he had many drummers. He had Clem Burke, and he had Sandy Chilla, and he had Eric Singer, and he had Brian Tishy. He would just use different drummers for different things because that's kind of how he liked to do things.
Sure.
Mark Van Zyzen was his touring drummer. Rob Affuso from Skid Row played on it, but I played on something. And then when Mark left the band, Mark Van Zyzen, I think Eric Singer did some gigs with Gilby, did a little tour because he wasn't playing in Kiss. And then I did some gigs, like a tour. And then Eric did some gigs, and then I did some gigs. And it was for a few years, it was that. And then on one of those gigs, when I was playing with Gilby, we played in Vegas, and Janie Lane from Warrant was there. It was
Wow.
he was going to do a couple of songs acoustically, acoustic set, opening up for us. At our sound check, he came up and he jammed a couple songs with us. We jammed them at the show. A few weeks later, I get a call saying, "Hey, would you like to go to the Warrant show? They're playing the Roxy or something in LA." It's like, "Fuck, sure." And I saw Janie, and I didn't. I was like, "Fuck, Warrant." Warrant is like Rat and Motley Crue. Those are my bands, right? That I loved, growing up at that time. And he was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" I was like, "It's going good." And I was just like, "Man, Janie Lane remembers me." And then a couple, like literally like 5 days later, I got a call from his manager saying, "Hey, Janie wants to do a band. He wants to do covers. One of the guys from Rat, one of the guys from Motley Crue, one of the guys from whoever. We're gonna do this, and he wants you to play drums. Do you want to do it?" I was like, "Yes, I want to do it." So we would do these little runs, and we played Vegas and Phoenix
Cool.
and San Diego, and do these little runs, and each guy'd make a few $100s a show, and it was fun for Janie. Got him out of the house, and he's just a performer, just a performer.
Yeah.
And then one year in 2000, Danny Wagner at the time quit after the New Year's show. I got a call from Janie saying, "Hey, Danny quit. We have 5 or 6 shows, and one's in Puerto Rico, a few are on the East Coast. Learn these songs. I told the guys about you." He called them the senior partners. That was the other senior partners of the corporation, which is Warrant, Eric Turner and Jerry Dixon. "And they know who you are. You're going to do these gigs, but I'm going to be honest with you. They're probably going to do an audition and get some kid, some blonde, long-haired, skinny kid to do the gig and really pay him nothing. So just enjoy these gigs. It is what it is." Did the gigs. The next thing I knew, I was getting a call from the manager. "Hey, there's a photo shoot. They want you to be in the photo shoot. Are you available Wednesday?"
Wow.
I got a call from Eric, the guy in the band, and then I called the manager. I said, "Hey, Eric left me a message about this photo shoot for Warren. I thought you guys are going to get the blonde-haired kid that's skinny and pay him nothing." "No, they love you. They want you to be in the band." So from Gilby Clarke, it went to Warrant, and then from that, I played an Alice Cooper golf tournament. He would have these great tournaments, and I jammed with this band, and I played with Don Felder. We played a couple of songs, a blues song and whatever, and at the end, and Chuck Woolery from like the Love Connection. I mean, it's kooky, and Cheech Marin, and just like all of these people, Dennis Hopper, and all these people are there. You're just kind of around these people. Anyway, so Don was like, "Hey man, I live in LA," and it's like, "I live in LA too," and it's like, "Hey man, I have a studio. You should come to my studio." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." And then prior to even going to the studio, he says, "Hey, I've got an opportunity to do a Dennis Quaid charity golf tournament,
Sure.
Weirdly Entertainment," and I was just like, "Yeah, I'm in." And he sent me, I think he sent me a CD, and a letter with the songs, and And then I went up to meet him because he wanted to change a few of the arrangements on it. And this is when he was out of the Eagles and
Yeah.
in this massive lawsuit with the Eagles.
Yes.
So he was starting to do these things and wanted to be his own person. And yeah, so we flew a private jet to Dallas and played this Dennis Quaid thing. It was crazy, and played these songs. And Branford Marsalis, the sax player from Sting, who I got to meet and I
Wow.
jammed with us, and it was just like, it was just kind of crazy. Now, and I thought to myself, the only reason I got this gig is because Don Felder knew the Warrant name. And obviously
That's
I could
cool.
play rock and roll drums, right? The Eagles is so up my alley to do this. It was a different situation, but it was still meat and potatoes, and that's the kind of guy or spaghetti and meatballs because I'm Italian. It was up my alley, and I could do the gig, and I did the gig. We would do these corporates, and it was over a couple years. We did about 10 or 12 gigs in a couple years. He was going through a lawsuit, so he couldn't go full blown touring.
Yep.
And it was a great opportunity, and whatever. That was the thing, but it came from Gilby. It went to Warrant. It went to Don Felder. It's whatever. So
Incredible.
I was lucky, but I also worked at it and tried to make it happen.
That's fabulous. We have a question here from Anthony McKelly saying, Mike, can you share some of your experience with tunings and tech stuff you also do over the past 20 years? Thanks, and can you please pass the wine?
Pass the wine. I like it. I met Anthony because Matt Sorum at this probably the last NAMM show in the history of NAMM shows, 2020. Matt Sorum, I had just signed with Gretsch the year before, and Matt said, hey, there's a dinner. I'm invited. First of all, I love this because Matt never really, I don't think he really, I think he thought it was cool that I played drums, but never saw me in Warrant, never really saw me in anything, whatever. And then he came to a Tiger Army show, and then he saw it. And then he saw, oh my God, they sold out a theater 2 nights in a row in LA. Oh my God, look at the merch line. Oh my God, look at all these people singing the songs. Like, he wasn't a fan or didn't know about it, but became a fan of me, started looking at me different, which for my big brother, it's the biggest compliment ever.
Yeah.
I was just, I'm still setting up Matt Sorum's drums for stuff, but I think he looks at me different. And he's like, hey man, do you want to hang out at NAMM? When are you going? Oh, I'm going Thursday. Okay, let's go. Or Saturday, whatever it was. So I'm hanging out with Matt Sorum, not as his drum guy, but as another drummer. So we go to NAMM, and he's like, you're going to be my date for this Gretsch dinner. And Anthony was at the dinner, and
Yep.
Steve Ferroni was at the dinner, and Mark Schulman was at the dinner, and Dinah Gretsch was at the dinner, and
Lucas.
all of these people. Yeah. And Lucas was at the dinner.
Yep.
Lucas von Gretsch. And,
Man.
and we came in late, classically late, because Matt was talking about something to somebody at the Marriott bar, and we had to go find it. So we're late, and it's just the weirdest thing. But Dinah was so gracious. She knew we were late, and she probably knew Matt. Certainly knew me. I was literally, I was like, I'm the new unknown nobody with all of these heavy, and it was just weird, right? I couldn't drink enough beers to sort of mellow out, but I had to drive home, so I couldn't even do that. But Dinah came over, and she was just like, hi, here's my pin, my ceramic pin. I want you guys to have this. And because we missed all of this because we were late, but that's where I met Anthony and a bunch of the other guys, and it's just so crazy. And Lucas, and what's really crazy is Lucas has been such a great, like, he reposts Tiger Army stuff for me, and he put us together. He put me in the Paul Cooper and Josh Safer video. At the end, he put a few artist pictures, and it's me, and then it's Charlie Watts, and I'm just like, my mind is just absolutely blown being a part of this family and being sort of welcomed in. And as drummers, all we want is a home. We want a home in whatever band we're playing in. We want a home with the equipment we use, the people we work with. At least I do.
Yes.
That's what I want. I just want to feel comfortable and be at home. So, but that's where I met Anthony and a bunch of the other guys. And but as far as like tuning and stuff, God, that's a whole thing. And I'm happy to chat with Anthony about this anytime. But basically, it's finding the right heads for the right drum. And there's not many. I don't go crazy with head stuff. It's tuning is like a balance between the top and the bottom. I'm not necessarily tuning to a note. Um, and I always use a little bit of muffling just to control stuff a little bit. Um, but it just, there's a basic thing that I like to do that works. And, and then when it's not working, then you've got to put more dampening on or different head or a different thing. But usually when I'm working on a record for somebody, a producer, I will talk and I'm going for this sound, I'm going for that sound. And if it's a metal thing, I love using clear emperors on Gretsch toms with clear
Mm.
ambassadors on the bottom, open tuning, a little bit of gel. But the majority of the time, coated emperors are great,
Yes.
round, warm heads. They make everything sound real and natural.
Yeah.
And the thing that really is crazy, in the last several years, I've been working with a lot of indie bands, like a band like Young the Giant, where they recorded their first hit record in a dorm room. And yet they wanted the Craviotto drum set. The producer wanted it, whatever, Craviotto, blah, blah, blah. Yet we were doing stuff like completely taping the drums down, putting tape on the snare wires because there was sympathetic buzz. And it almost like anybody who didn't play drums could have gotten this drum sound. But it wasn't the Craviotto tom sound. It wasn't even with Gretsch or DW or whatever. People are putting tambourines on the toms or jingles or this or big fat snare drum rings. It's just like they're making, drums have a sound. I worked with a band from Canada called Metric. Do you know
Mm.
Metric?
Yeah,
They're
sure do.
massive, right? So this drummer, really sweet guy, his name's Jules, and he was great. And we talked, and he's like, "Oh, I want the Coliseum drum, and I want this drum, and I want that drum, and I want the Black Beauty, and I want the bell brass, and I want the Gretsch, blah, blah, blah." And when we got to the session, everybody else in the band had an opinion. Our snare drum sound is gush. Our snare drum sound is gush. So I had a piccolo that I had to tune to sound like gush. I had Big Red, my Thomas Superstar from November Rain and Don't Cry, gush. That's a sound. My Black Beauty had to go gush. My bell brass had to go gush. My aluminum, solid aluminum had to go gush. I had 20 snare drums around me in a circle, and I was just like, I'm going crazy because it's not the character of the drum. And that's
Yeah.
what we're dealing with a lot of now. You could have any drum. You can have a Pearl, nothing wrong with Pearl Export. You can have any drum. And if
Yeah.
you start taping it down and dampening it down, put a tambourine on or jingles or this and that, it doesn't matter if it's a Gretsch drum or a Craviotto drum or a Pearl Export drum or whatever drum. You know what I mean? You might as well just get a wastebasket, a Rubbermaid wastebasket and hit it. And that's the vibe. It's a sound. It's sonic. It's not whatever. And sorry, Anthony, I know I'm not answering your question, but we can do this. And I will talk to you about tuning. That's just a whole nother thing. But it's opinion. It's what the producer's opinion. What is his or the several producers, because everybody in the band's a producer now, of what sounds cool. And it doesn't have to be a Gretsch, and it doesn't have to be this, whatever. But one thing I do know, I can go from a metal record with Gretsch to a jazz thing with Gretsch
Yeah.
in the studio and everything in between. And I know there's a range, and there's also different lines of Gretsch that you can use, and you can treat differently with drum heads and whatever. But it's wood and metal, and if you can balance your heads and your tuning on your toms, kick drums are pretty easy. Snare drums, I crank the bottom head as tight as possible. I tune all of the dynamic, the ring, the crack, or the fatness from the top head. As long as you have a nice snare bed and tight head to lay on, you can
Mm-hmm.
do all that from the top. And then obviously, if you need a piccolo, get a piccolo. Don't make the dish crank it up and sound like a piccolo. It's never going to sound like a piccolo. So having options of drums, is super important when you're recording. whether you're our age in recording or you're just starting out, borrow somebody's snare drum, borrow somebody's cymbal, borrow an extra kick drum. You never know what's going to translate, what room you're in, what garage you're in, what home studio you're in, whatever. Having these options will save time in the long run of, getting a drum sound.
Wonderful. Together. Can we run down some of the drums behind you that we haven't talked about, starting with the burnt orange? So on your, looks like your left side there. So
this one.
Yes. Let's talk about that stack of drums that you have.
Well, this is an 80s burnt orange. It's funny, is a long time ago, I was driving through San Diego and I stopped into a Guitar Center. I was visiting a friend and there was a drum set there, and it was a 11 by 12, 12 by 13, 16 by 16, and this kick drum, this burnt orange kick drum. And it's like, those sizes were not practical, but I bought the kit. And I think it was crazy. I think it was a crazy price. Now this is at least 20 years ago now. I think I paid like maybe $700 for this kit. That was, because everything was, we have this drum kit brand new and it's got rim, it's whatever, and the sizes were smaller, whatever. There was all this other stuff out there. Somebody must have traded in, but I bought the kit. I got rid of the toms because, like an idiot, because it wasn't, but the kick drum was magical. So I've had this burnt orange kick drum that sounds amazing. And now that I've signed and I'm playing Gretsch, I'm piecing together a burnt orange kit. Yes. And this is one of the toms that I recently got. And I have a 15 and a 16 and a 13. I've added these things over the last year and a half because I'm going to take this and I'm going to play this. I want to play a burnt orange kit because Nick 13 has a burnt orange Gretsch guitar. And it would be cool to do, maybe I'll take it on tour if we do a month tour or something, or I might use it for like a special show. Sometimes we play a couple of special theater shows. And so that's a burnt orange tom that goes to a kit that I'm still looking for a few things. I'm still looking for like an 18 and whatever, but and a 12, an 8 by 12. But yeah, it's great to have options because eventually once I do get all the sizes, I would bring this into a session and have it as just a different option or a color option, really. I mean, because I have some of the 80s Gretsch drums that sound great, and this is a really cool color. And what sucks is you can't ever see it right. This is the purple or the eggplant. Yeah. And I just can't, it doesn't come across however you do it. It just doesn't look right. But when you're in with it here, it's really cool. This is a kit. When I worked at Valley Art, my friend Scott Mundy had sold and ordered for a guy named Dave Carasoni. Dave Carasoni he plays in the Rippingtons. And when he got in the Rippingtons, he got a Yamaha deal. We have the same tax guy. This is still pre-social media. This is like 15 years ago. And the tax guy reached out to me and said, hey, Dave wants to sell his kit. Are you interested in buying it? I was like, are you kidding me? So I bought this kit, and it's like 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 24. And it's a really cool kit. And this is what's in my practice room. So it's an 80, it's actually 91 purple or eggplant or whatever they call it. This is a salmon pink snare drum. Beautiful. This is something that when I was playing with Gilby had traded this guy named Joey DePompe, one of his drummer friends and our friends, a guitar for this Gretsch kit. And it's 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 18, 24-inch kick drum. Wow. It's salmon pink, and Gilby said, look, give me $1,200 for it. I was like, boom, I'm taking it. And it came with cases. Wow. So I got this thing. This is a hard one to bring onto a session because it's pink. And a lot of times producers hear with their eyes and they want to see the natural, or they want to see the burnt orange, or they want to see the ebony or whatever. This is a tough one. So this one hasn't been on many sessions, even though I did use the floor tom for something with Tiger Army. And this guy, which is this guy, this is the 1958 anniversary Sparkle round badge Gretsch, and these are the drums that I played on the Retro Future record It's a 13/16 20-inch kick drum.
Yep.
And I had my burnt orange kick drum, the one-off, that I'm building the kit around. When I brought it in, and our producer Ted Hutt was like, "That kick drum sounds great," and playing that little kick drum sounded amazing. And I didn't feel like I was losing something about. Well, obviously, it's 1958. It's aged and it's got warmth and it's whatever. But I used that on the whole record, and I coated Ambassador tom heads, and I tuned the drums up to cut through and whatever. And the sticks were smaller and lighter, and all of these little elements made a picture. So that's a 1958 Gretsch kit that I have, Anniversary Sparkle, and it's in the last 3 videos for Tiger Army that on Retro Future. This is the solid aluminum. This is the Broadcaster Cadillac Green. This is a kit I bought at Pro Drum, which was like reissued in like 2008. A little bebop kit, 12, 14, and an 18-inch kick drum, and it sounds amazing. And I bring this on sessions. And speaking of Maroon 5 and Matt, this is the ultra. I've been working with them over the past couple years on recording the Super Bowl stuff that they did for Super Bowl, and a record and whatever. This is the alternate kit to my Gretsch Round Badge 125th anniversary kit that's not here, which is the Rock Legend kit, which after Charlie Watts. So that's the main kit we use with them, and then this is the alternate kit. But this is on a lot of the Maroon 5 in a small little drum room, and it's insane, and they love this. So this is a really cool kit. And this down here is just your ebony tom that's a little bit faded. It's for that kit that I have. Sorry. Let me go over here. Here's the piano black Gretsch USA Custom Maple. Here is an 80s, I have all of these colors have the kit with them. This is the 80s Square Badge Natural. This is a really cool drum that I stumbled upon in Pro Drum Shop. It's a parade drum. It's 15 diameter by 14-inch depth, and it's got a Kevlar head on it from like 30 years ago, and it sounds awesome. And I'm not even going to screw with anything on it, and it's really cool, and it's a great thing to bring. This is an 18-inch stop sign badge rosewood colored drum kit, in which I have the rest of the drums with my other band I play with, John Gregory, who's a singer-songwriter guy. We've been friends for years. The rest of the drums are there. This is another kit that will make an appearance with Tiger Army, either on a tour or a one-off show or something. But yeah, I've got this stuff. It's cool just to have these options, and they sound great. There's just something about the drums that just always work. They're the security blanket to a producer, knowing the history of the Gretsch company, the artists that have used the drums, the sessions they have used the drums on. No matter whose drums they are, whatever, there's proof in the pudding. You know what I mean? There is a legacy to this, and there's a lot of range. I mean, you can tune these up and put a coated Ambassador head on the top and tune it up, and there's a jazz thing. You can clear Emperors and a little moon gel and really get that attack for the metal stuff in that low end. Or right in the middle, a coated Emperor head, clear Ambassador on the bottom, even tuning, and just they sound like drums. That's what I know, or I try to know, is source, roundness. I want it to sound like a drum. I don't, like I was telling you that with the metric thing, every snare drum was gush, gush, gush. It didn't matter what it was. It could have been anything. So I'm trying to bring the source. I'm trying to bring the purity to the beginning of it, tune them as open and as pure as possible, and then let the engineers do their magic with their mics and their thing. And then listen, do we need to mute it down? Do we need to open it up? Do we need to bring the toms up? See how everything's sitting in and stuff like that. But you just can't go wrong.
We have 45 seconds left, my friend.
Okay.
We have eaten up an hour. I can't believe it. We will definitely do a part 2. I want to thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest and such a great person to chat with beforehand. And man, I could do another hour of this. And all the best to you. And I will definitely keep in touch. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And
Thank
next,
you so much for having me, and thank you,
I
Lucas, for
appreciate.
having my back too and get me on this.
Thank you.
But you know, you guys can inbox me or whatever. I'm always willing to help or do this if anybody has questions about whatever.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Canada, eh? Go Canada.